Evening, Generals. Sorry for all the delays. A lot of stuff have come up in my personal life, but looks like I've got everything settled out for the time being, so perfect time to get an update out, don't you think? All right, so I'm just going to do another quick overview for you just to cover a couple things. First off, this is a general kind of clue to everybody. When you give your orders, remember to make sure that you are aware of the distances and also understand that there is room for mistakes or just also initiative. One thing I will do is if you leave units sitting around with extra movement and no orders, I'll generally try to take advantage of it unless you have explicitly said they can't move anywhere. So it's one thing to consider. Also, remember that if you give movement that is kind of aggressive but doesn't actually reach it, for instance, let's say you wanted me to move this 11th Infantry Division here, south of these three units to then attack them. Well, see, there's no red arrow there, so I could move them there, but I couldn't attack. One thing to remember with infantry divisions especially is this is open plains. This is as good as it gets. Good weather, open terrain, even some infrastructure here. They can only move about 1 to 2 provinces and then attack if they're foot infantry. That cuts down dramatically, especially if there's a river in the way. You see right here, this infantry division could move because it's all friendly territory and there's no enemy around. It can move 3 after crossing a river, but if there's an enemy unit there, not so much. So just be aware that terrain does have a drastic effect on how far you can move. So when you're giving infantry attack orders, be sure to be kind of on the cautious side and be aware that if you want them to march and fight, 1 to 2 provinces is your max. You can see right here, again with the 11th Infantry, it can move 1 and attack. Can't move 2 here to attack. But here, because it's a little more open, it can go down along these roads, it can make 2 and then attack further away. So generally, infantry is not going to be a speedy unit for an offensive. So that's just something to be aware of. When it goes to offensives, be sure to be using your panzers and your motorized infantry to really be the hammer. They're the guys that really get all the offensive bonuses. They take less damage. But of course, then the more wear and tear they get, the more worn down they get, and then you have to rest them to get some replacement tanks there. So anyway, let's do a quick overview of the army groups. We'll start with Army Group North here. First off, let's bring up the resupply here so I can... There it is. You can see the 4th Panzer Group, its headquarters for its fuel is still in Königsberg. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's still moving along well along these rail lines, and they're slowly being converted to the German standard. So things are good here on the logistics side. Also, incredibly good news is this, basically, honestly, this is about an army to an army and a half, maybe even 2 armies worth of divisions stuck in this pocket. That's a wonderful little trap there. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, at least 10 divisions in there, including the Army HQ. There might be an 11th division hidden beneath a stack. There's just so damn many units in this area. So this is going to be a huge gift. You can already see they really don't have much left, and they're already trying to retreat back to Riga and to get across the river. So things are good here. I'll show you some movement examples just so you can get things in here. Infantry again, 1 province to attack, moving 2 really can't attack. So it's basically 1 and move, 1 and attack, or 2 moves is your general rule of thumb. Sometimes you can do 3, but just count on 2 and then say if they have the extra move, then go 3. We'll see here, 6th Panzer. Look at this. All the Russians have kind of been broken and surrounded here and to a lesser extent here, which means all this territory is really open. The foot infantry, of course, can't move very far, but they would be perfect at holding this pocket or breaking the pocket open. I mean, just surround it and attack it. You see even down here, these units, since they finally cross the river, they can move a bit. But your panzers and your motorized divisions can move a pretty fair clip, even the ones that are currently in the line. So it's a good thing for Army Group North. Army Group Center, again, you had some really good successes. The Bialystok, and forgive me for butchering this, even though I am part Polak, it's been wiped out. I posted a picture of the battle results earlier, and now the foot armies here are trying to move into positions. You can see right here, the 256, 258, they're kind of there. So they can move a fair distance, but again, since it's open and friendly, you can move 3 and actually be able to get at least 1 attack off. But that's just because they're so far behind. You can see up here, these units have a slightly reduced movement radius because they're in near the front, but like this one, because it's through forests and up to the front line, it can only move 1 and attack. Same thing with the 5th Infantry Division here. This is actually something for the orders from Army Group Center, which came in earlier. It was a bit ambitious, I'd say. You'll want to make sure you don't give me movement orders that go too far or count on them. You can see over here, I tried to get them as close to your destination as possible. Same thing with the 35th. But rivers are a huge obstacle to movement. Like it takes up a good chunk of your movement. Thing. I'll show you right here. See, an infantry unit has 100 action points. It would cost a lot to get right there. That would cost 70 of its 100 movement points. So it costs 40 movement points to attack. So crossing a river basically means you can't attack. Now, attacking across a river actually can work because it would just cost you the regular amount of movement points. It'll cost you, I think, I actually don't know the exact cost for doing it. But if you attack across a river, you will have enough movement points to then move into the evacuated hex. So just showing you sort of the infantry movement here for the Army Group Center. You can see these guys, even these guys that I moved up close, they've already crossed over the river. They're in Grodno. Again, 2 movement and attack. They just don't expect these guys to be doing too much on the offensive right now. Basically, your best use for infantry is basically to fill out your line, hold your flanks, tie guys down, use your mechanized units to really deliver the killing blow. And again, the 4th Army down here, same thing. They could help take out the 42nd, but there were some movement orders about going after these guys, which didn't really work out. Some of the movement orders, ironically, were for the mechanized units were actually maybe a little too cautious, and they didn't go as far forward as they could have. And so what I did is I did push them forward a little bit, moved them up when they had leftover movement points or when they had leftover attack points, just to make sure that you're not wasting anything, because I know that you don't have access to all the information I do. So I try and fill that in for you. Good thing is the Reds are in full retreat. Minsk is not that far away, even though, as you can see right here, Warsaw, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We're getting to the limits of the logistical train. Once you get beyond 10 hexes for your Panzer HQs, the truck losses start to become exponential. It's poor, shitty Russian roads, and just repairs start to take a toll. So you'll just start to lose the efficiency of keeping your guys refueled, spare parts, etc. Basically, it gets to the point where more trucks are breaking down and you're spending more fuel getting the fuel to your front lines than they actually deliver. So that's why moving up forward supply bases is good. However, it seems that with Army Group Center has kind of focused on taking Minsk first. Not a bad idea, because that way you get to avoid the slowdown associated with relocation. And I'll go through here to show you the infantry units here for the Panzers, cavalry, but also your mechanized units. You can see right here, they can move up quite a fair distance and still hit these frontline units. So you probably could blitz through to Minsk. I wouldn't say this turn, maybe next turn, because there's going to be probably a garrison here, but like these one isolated divisions here are going to be no resistance. You can attack them with one division, blitz through, and then use your other divisions to attack the next one, and then blitz through again. For instance, the 29th tank here, they only have 25 T-26s in the entire division. 33rd tank, they have a handful of T-34s. So compare that to your 3rd Panzer, which has 30 Panzer IVs and 50 Panzer IIs and 70 Panzer IIIs, plus your offensive bonuses. Yeah, any Panzer division here is going to defeat any one of these broken and retreating red divisions. Almost one-on-one. However, I would suggest probably going 2-to-1. And the main reason for that is, A, you deal more damage. B, you're less likely to take damage. And that, C, it just allows you to project more force. And the one thing is, right now, we want to avoid losing as many tanks as possible. I'll show you right here for Army Group Center here for Guderian's group. You can see he's at about 90% of his tanks are running and 99% of his trucks and half-tracks and things. Same thing with the 3rd Panzer Group, 87% running, 98% of the half-tracks and things. That's not bad. But when it gets down to 50%, these units are going to be just start losing their combat effectiveness. And go here to your SS division here, even the motorized divisions. They can move pretty quickly. And the 7th Panzer, look at this. They can blitz almost all the way up to the city, cut these units off, or cut these guys off in Vilnius. So you've got a lot of opportunities. I would suggest exploiting this gap here and seizing this railroad while with the 3rd Panzer Group, while Guderian's group moves up along the railroad and tries to seize Minsk, or just blitzes north of it to try and get around these units. So you're in a good position, and you did just wipe out a huge army, so kudos on Army Group Center. Army Group South. All right, you're a little spread out. That's actually not a bad thing. The movement units, there's a little confusion in some of the orders because some of them, again, wanted these units to move a little bit too far or not far enough in some regards. The infantry could not complete this encirclement here, so a number of these divisions in this area here actually have pulled back a little bit. Not all of them, but some of them. However, they're still pretty isolated, so you can see right here, the 257th Infantry, these infantry divisions can move through too. They won't be able to attack, but you could send one division here to enable an attack, another division all the way to the south, and they'll be able to cut off that whole stack there. Same thing, the 9th Panzer, they can move down, and moving down one because they'd be crossing across a river, and help you secure and cut off that pocket. So if you shift your 17th Army units around, you can have them attack this group here, move some units around here, close the pocket, and then attack. The reason why you want to close the pocket before you attack is that when they retreat, if there's a province or a hex that they can retreat to, they'll use it and you won't wipe them all out entirely. You move 2 infantry divisions, one here, and then one to the southeast here, like the Panzer Division, something like that. Then once you've attacked this hex into the north, you can follow up with a second offensive, wipe out this entire army. One thing also is with your orders is make sure that you specify attacks. I would prefer if you put attacks all grouped together, because if you say X unit moves here and then attacks, I try and do your orders in the way I read them, like in the order I read them, which means that if you have a unit that wants to attack, like 13th Panzer, you want them to move here and attack the 19th Tank. And then 6 lines later, it also says the 11th Panzer is going to move here and help the attack. This attack might have already been launched. Now, there is, of course, some common sense here. I'm not going to launch a suicidal attack. If it's 2-to-1 odds against us, 3-to-1 odds against us, the commanding officer is going to call it off or try not to. So that's just the way it is. That way I'll spare in case something comes up. Don't have to worry about your army getting wiped out because one order couldn't go through or one unit couldn't make the offensive. I'll use some common sense there. And remember that our commanders do have some a lot of their own abilities to move. So that's also how I was able to take Lvov here. Because it was surrounded, cut off. Your units had extra movement, but didn't have any other attack orders. So I used them to take the city and then move them up to their full movement here, push back some more red units. That also means that once you get rid of this army, there's basically nothing in the field. Let me minimize this to give you a good overview. There's nothing in the field here to prevent you from seizing Tarnopol, Rovno, and moving along towards the fortified area here. I would suggest also moving down the main railway. You can see it's a thicker railway, the thicker brown line, because you want to. This Proskuro will be the next supply depot. Although Kiev is also a very good target, so you might want to ignore that, move up along the lesser railway, try and get around these fortifications and seize Kiev. But just remember that your objective for Army Group South is over here, is in this area. I'll zoom out for you. You really want to reach Rostov. That's the main goal, but you want to be able to take these kind of river crossings to allow you to get across there. That's the major goal for you. But Kiev, Kharkov, Rostov, these are all good things to go for. Just remember that you want to be aware of your logistics. So cutting south here and then moving up towards Kiev, then cutting south again could be a good, strong idea. Anyway, some more movement comparison here for the first army group. Infantry, again, move 1 square in attack. It can move 2 to hold them down. Can't move too far. Same thing with this guy who's pretty far behind. Your panzers, I mean, look at that. You could already seize these cities and be threatening Rovno. So you're in a really good position. The units here, whatever's left of the Red 6th Army, they're broken and destroyed. Let me bring it up to show you kind of what we see here. These 2 units, again, like this one's the 12th tank. I think they just moved into the line. You can tell they've got 125 T-26s and a handful of the T-24s or T-34s. And they got 1,400 infantry. So they're fairly well stocked, but compare that to the 34th tank, which got pushed back by the 25th Motorized. They've had little reinforcements, but they're almost out of infantry. They're pretty weak. So the 6th Army here just doesn't have much to offer you in terms of resistance. So your divisions can kind of move wherever they want. I would recommend cutting off the 6th Army here and wiping it out first. Remember that we get points for every army group that we wipe out, so you want to make sure you're killing these guys as good as you can. 6th Army, this 61st Division, one, maybe, I'd probably send these 2 divisions to attack it just to wipe it out to make sure. And then start moving these guys along your left flank. I would recommend avoiding the swamp. And the reason why is because it cuts your movement rate down extremely. As you can see right here, here's the 56th Infantry Division. It can only move 2. There's a lot of rivers here. It's swampy terrain. That's a lot of delay to your movement. I would recommend heading the whole 6th Army towards Rovno. And a lot of your division are kind of freed up because the pocket was wiped out. So I would just focus on moving these guys up and around and supporting the left flank as your 1st Panzer Group moves south along the rail line. All right, that covers up all of this stuff. And now just go to the Romanians here. The Reds are still pulling back a bit, but you have to get across these rivers. I'll show you right here. The 6th Infantry can cross this river, which costs us 60, and then it still leaves it the 40 to attack. So it can move 1 and attack, can't move 2. 4th Mountain, however, they can move a little bit around, get around the flanks. 1st Mountain here could move up or try and take the city here. The Reds are kind of pulling back. They can kind of tell that there's a pocket here, and I think they want to try and hold the front line to allow the 26th Army to escape. Down around here, your units are in a pretty good position. They moved across. The same thing as I said earlier about movement rates and attacks. Be aware that units can't be too aggressive, but you also want to move them across rivers one turn so they don't have to pay that additional cost and extra. That's why the 1st Army, 1st Armored Division for the Romanians actually is across the river instead of staying in the town. I moved them up across so that way this turn they would get their full movement range instead of having to spend 48 fuel and 10 of their movement just crossing that river anyway. You can see your infantry divisions can't move too far to attack. Remember, it's generally 1 in attack, maybe 2 in attack if you're lucky. But these red units are actually kind of cut off. You can see right here, the border division could reach this town, cut them off. 5th Infantry Division could attack here, try and close it off from the north. I don't think you'll be able to blitz through to that province. You might be able to if you close this pocket a bit. Or you could just blitz through the middle with these divisions, try and take them out, and see if you can just push up that way and then enclose this army. You'll want to try and take out these divisions if you can, because places like Odessa are going to be fortified heavily, and those can be quite a challenge to break. All right, and then just again a couple more observations for your divisions, so you can see just how far they can move and what movement range you're looking at. Just to give you an idea, remember that if I click on a division, a red arrow next to a province means it can move there and attack, but if it's like 2 provinces away and there's no red arrow, that means it can only move there. So that's one thing to consider. All right, I've already gone over the decisions in the decision thread. However, one thing to consider is cards, and not these cards here, although there are some new ones, which I've actually will be talking about in the update. Because we chose to get high-octane fuel, we have 2 of these free high-octane fuel cards to use. So if you really need to blitz your Panzer Group 1 turn, you know, talk to me. You definitely have to do it publicly and get the approval of other guys, so that way you're not just secretly trying to use it up. You have to make a case for it. But that'll give you guys a bonus to movement, so it's one thing to consider. The other one is commander cards for your Panzer groups which have focuses. You can see right here, the Panzer group has a, because the Panzer group here, like the 1st Panzer group, has a focus for the army group, it has these different little cards. You can see tactical, flanks, offensive components. And I talked about this before. You definitely want to make sure you tell me which card you want to have deployed to each of your Panzer groups. Because if you don't tell me, I'm not going to use it. But these give you things like this one gives you big bonus to your maneuver. So a lot more movement points. Inspire, morale. Envelopment is offensive bonus and movement bonus, but it's like half of each. So it gives you better to attack and better to maneuver. So just talk to me, and these are just good to play. Well, just basically you want them in play. Just to make sure that you're getting the full use out of your units. All right, that covers about everything. The last thing is we still haven't moved the heavy artillery out of Warsaw. We haven't really seen an option for it. Looks like we've seized the towns before it's been played. So definitely mention that if you want to get some artillery in play. It does take time to get there. The good news is that we do have good relationships with General Gudurka here. And that increases, I mean, he loves us basically. And that's a negative, 30% chance to a delay moving our siege artillery. So that means it should be able to get to where we need it to go pretty quickly. All right, and the other thing is just remember that I mentioned this by bringing up relationships in the turn update, but we're pretty good relationships with the commanding officers, 3, 9, and 9. So that's a nice bonus. The more they like us, the more, I guess, you like me, the more there's a higher chance of an AP bonus. Goering doesn't really like us, but it's not too bad. Hitler likes us, which is kind of strange to say. But von Brauchtisch is the one guy to look at because you can see right here, he likes us so much, or so little, I should say, that he's increased the cost whenever we play a decision by 1 political point, and there's a chance of these negative decisions happening randomly, which are things you want to avoid. And the other negative relationship we currently have is with General Wagner, who's in charge of the trucks. Right now, there's really no effect, but one thing to consider is that if he has a negative relationship with us, and it deepens because we favor trains or we favor our army group commanders, that can actually have a negative effect on logistics across the entire front. Because all of a sudden, he's not giving us his best work, he's angry at us, trucks might break down more frequently, they might not get there as quickly as you want, etc. All right, that's about everything. One last thing, I'll give you a glimpse of the Finnish front. Doing pretty well, pushing the Reds back. Nothing much to do here, though, because those Bs there are how far the Finns can actually advance. There's a chance later on that they'll decide to move on further. Don't count on it, though. Count on the Finnish pushing up to the pre-war border and then stopping, and that's just where they'll sit. All right, that's about everything here. So I hope you have a wonderful time, Generals, and I'll see you in the